Are these bigger storm clouds for D's or R's?
Well, I think it's storm clouds for all of them, really. When you look at the polling and you peel away the onion, Americans are just saying are criticizing everyone, Republicans, Democrats, and Trump and the Trump administration. Now, when you look a little bit deeper into the data and you force people to choose, they slightly blame the Republicans more than the Democrats. But overall, the takeaway is it's a dysfunctional system, a pox in all your houses.
And Cliff, just the fear about the tariffs, I think, was another one of your sub-headlines as well. And I'm old enough to remember when Donald Trump cast economic confidence in his policies, at least, as one of the reasons that he won the election. But we're seeing some different things play out in the numbers that you've run.
Yeah, well, the issue set is changing, right? He won on cost of living. It still is an important issue, but other issues like political extremism are more important. I would say that Trump overall, in terms of his approval numbers, he's in a relatively good position, if not great position. He's in the mid to low 40s, whether it be by Ipsos polling or polling from all other firms. That's a good place to be. It's better than 2017. But that all said, there's still a high degree of trepidation and unease among Americans about the tariffs. They see the tariffs as inflationary in nature. We've already picked up in our polling, in the surveying of American households, changing or adjustment of behavior on the margins. Maybe I buy a little bit cheaper. Maybe I stockpile a little bit. Obviously, this hasn't fully hit. When you look at sort of the projections from economists, it looks like the tariffs will have their full impact in Q4 and in Q1 of next year. So those, in my mind, are the real storm clouds. That is the impact or potential negative impact of inflation on Americans' opinions of the administration and Trump.
Well, based on the conversation we're having today about China, this couldn't be more important for the markets, for our audience, for consumers, Cliff. And boy, we've been given the administration a good deal of space on Wall Street when it comes to this. We're bumping up against all-time highs unless investors seem to think that this is falling apart. Scott Besson got the gains back on track today, suggesting we may have an extension in the trade truce. But fear that tariffs will lead to inflation. You say low levels of optimism in these policies, with the percentage that say Trump's tariffs on imported goods are making prices for things they buy go up is 70%. And that's consumers of both parties, right?
Yes, and it's a big number, and some of that is real, and some of that is anticipatory. You also have especially Republicans understanding that the short term might be bad, but the long term benefits of bringing back manufacturing and jobs is more important. So it's a more complex issue than just a fear of inflation or inflation specifically. Yeah. But once again, it's something that needs to be looked at and followed over time, because a vast majority of Americans are worried about the future and its inflationary aspects.
And Cliff, when we look at some of these numbers, I mean, the economic, as we mentioned, indicators show that President Trump has lost some support or lost some steam since last November. Immigration relatively seems to be a stronger issue for him. But when you look beneath those numbers, they look a little bit mixed in terms of National Guard, in terms of just deportations, et cetera.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That's a very important point, Mario. When you look at Trump, generally speaking, and his approval ratings in general, he's in a relatively good place. I already said he's like around 43 or 44. That's better than 2017. All things considered, it's a good place to be in a highly polarized America. But when you look at specifically the issues or the policies, that support falls off considerably. When you look across the signature initiatives by the administration, he doesn't garner a majority of support in any of them. Not even immigration. When you go specifically at immigration, you talk about deportation, it falls to around 40%. Obviously, he still garners the support of Republicans, supermajority percent of Republicans, but across the board, these signature policies do not find majority support.
Fascinating numbers on crime here, Cliff. And it reminds me of polls that find, congressional approval ratings are off a cliff. They're in the single digits, unless you're talking about someone's own member of Congress, and they love that guy. Just you fire everyone but my guy or my gal, and that's apparently the case for crime in your city. Your city is safe, just not the other ones. And when you take a look at this, you asked questions about this compared to this time last year. Is crime in the following area higher, lower, or the same? When you look at the country, through the roof, it's higher. Major cities, a little bit lower. Your state as a whole, we're down in the 30s here. Your city or community, nobody thinks that crime is a major problem. It's in the 20s. So the president has seized on a national perception here that people may not rationalize with their own town.
Yeah, man, I love my town. I love my guy. I don't like your town. I don't like your guy. That's something we see perennially in polling since even the 1930s. And indeed, the administration has leveraged that, right? It's all about proximity. The closer I am to the issue of crime, the less I think it's a problem. And he has, pushed that agenda. Now, the Republicans have historically pushed that agenda, with their base being in the suburbia and rural areas, not in those sort of blue urban areas. But ultimately, that's the explanation of the difference in perceptions. Now, that said, there is very little support for the deployment of National Guard troops in the urban areas. It doesn't matter how you ask it. You only get somewhere between 20 and 30% of Americans agreeing with it. But still, you get a strong majority of Republicans. But as a general, not base issue, it doesn't fly.
And Cliff, I do want to go back to one point that you made at the top, just about political extremism. We saw the White House present Charlie Kirk with a posthumous Medal of Honor yesterday. Some of your research shows that this had been front and center for Americans even before Kirk's murder about 5 weeks ago. What are you seeing there in the numbers?
Yeah, so as you said, Mario, that's a great point. It actually, worry about political extremism predates the Charlie Kirk assassination. It already was the #1 issue. What's happened since then, it's become a more national issue, not a Democratic issue, because historically it had been very much a Democratic issue, worries about threats to democracy, worries that Trump was authoritarian. Now we have Republicans saying the same, that they are worried with political violence, and it's directly a function of the Kirk issue.